right, welcome everybody to the Always Bayern Chelsea show. Today is November 8th, Saturday. We're recording this one in a little bit of an ad hoc setup. My internet is crapping out. I'm about to hit the road, and Bayern just drew 2-2 to Union Berlin in a flat, uninspired effort. And Chelsea's coming up next, so we will, of course, add Jim's thoughts at least on Chelsea. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to watch it because, again, I might be a road dog today. So we'll get you covered for that one as well. All in this episode. Bada bing, bada boom. Please like, please subscribe, and please comment.
Happy Saturday to all out there in this beautiful month of November, the greatest month of the year, greatest time of the year. It's a beautiful day. Bayern did not have a beautiful game, but hey, that is life, and we still got Chelsea coming up, so maybe we can have our ABC vibes get up a little bit later this afternoon. Speaking of that match, I guess you wouldn't be listening to this live, but after the fact here, if you want to go back, watch me live, watch Wolves against Chelsea, you can do that. But as Danny mentioned as well, please like, please subscribe, follow me over on TikTok if you're over on there. Kind of took little bit of a hiatus, but I'm more locked in now on TikTok. So hoping to get the following back up there in the coming days.
Yeah, very, very good. Very good. But yeah, let's just start and break down this Bayern Munich match. I hope my phone doesn't die during this time of this recording. I just realized that could be an issue, but you know what? We're going to jump through hoops. We're going through all these hurdles. I might have to break into the internet fiber optic line outside myself if it doesn't clear up here soon. But yeah, this was a weird match for Bayern. It started after a hard-fought, blood, sweat, and tears win against PSG in the Champions League on Wednesday, and Kompany didn't really make any rotations outside of Goretzka for Pavlovic. So we saw the lineup. It was Neuer in between the sticks. Neuer's worst outing of the year by far. Fumbled an easy catch to give up the first goal, made a couple of other mistakes that almost led to goals. Leimer was the right back, and then you had Upa and Taz, the center back. Stanisic was the left back. I thought Leimer, I think the whole back line did okay, not great. The midfield was Kimmich and Goretzka. I thought this was kind of a maybe poor match for Goretzka. Kimmich was pretty good. Then the attack was Olise at the right wing, Gnabry at the 10, Luis Diaz at the left wing, Harry Kane at the 9. This also might have been one of Olise's worst matches. I mean, he has a really brutal rating on SofaScore. He wasn't that bad, but he just, like all these guys, I thought was exhausted. Gnabry and Kane, I actually think, did a really good job of pressing and just covering like an ungodly amount of ground in the middle of the pitch there. And I think kind of made up for what was usually like the back line bombing up into the middle, into the midst of the attack, which they didn't really do that as much this one. So Kane and Gnabry, I think, kind of covered that ground. And then Diaz, really this might be the quintessential Luis Diaz match. Had a goal that was impossible to score. I mean, probably the goal of the year for Bayern Munich, and then missed an absolute 1v1, pretty much open net sitter by stumbling through what was barely a shot and more just like him falling into the ball and it going wide. So yeah, I guess rate that as you will. Like, he saves the team and then, maybe scuffs up one, but I guess that's life. And Kane was okay. Kane actually had an equalizer at the dying moments of the match, but probably could have done more to help out the attack throughout the match, and was basically directly at fault for that second Berlin goal. So yeah, that's kind of what I thought of the overall starters. Would love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I think we have a couple things at play here. Number one, you're coming off a huge win against PSG. The momentum vibes of that you got to take into consideration. Union Berlin clearly know that just happened for Bayern, and they're looking to take advantage of those emotional feelings that Bayern had after defending their asses off. You also just have non-rotation in this one, which I found interesting. Expected maybe a little bit more rotation from Vincent Kompany. And then you just have the international break coming up as well. Guys could potentially be looking ahead to that. You just never know. So, a lot of factors at play, but ultimately, Berlin showed up in a big way, especially in the first half, and Bayern got caught slightly by that.
100%. Yeah, this was the trap match of all trap matches. And it's just unfortunate. I'm not going to dog Company, but looking back at it, yeah, you should have rotated. These guys were like, I'm just going to keep saying this because I just noticed this throughout the match, but they were exhausted, like sloppy passes. They weren't pressing like they normally do. And again, it's like hindsight is 2020. I'm sure Company's goal was to get off to a quick start on this one and then make subs, kind of rest people in the back half of the match. He wasn't able to do that because of how the match played out. And then it looks like he should have just brought on, or maybe started some other guys from the jump. But the one thing I will maybe dog Company on for this match was I do think his in-game adjustments and his decisions on when to substitute guys came too late. I think it was pretty obvious from the jump how tired these guys were. And you really should have seen guys like Pavlovic, especially, and also Carl and also Bischoff. You should have seen them come in a little bit sooner. So it's not the end of the world, and it's not like I'm out on Company or something by any means. I think he's the perfect coach for this team still. I just think he was a little bit late to adjust in this one.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, and we know hindsight is 2020, but it's kind of crazy Carl doesn't get the start in this one. A young, exciting player that's going to have fresh legs and be a catalyst in your attack. We've seen Carl be electric at times, and he really has momentum right now. Everybody's talking about how great he's been. He's going to be getting appearances for German teams at this point. So it's shocking in a sense that didn't happen, but I do agree with your stance that maybe you're looking to score early, then rest some guys. And unfortunately for Bayern, that didn't happen because really the first, 30 minutes, I think Berlin were the stronger team with their pressing, just with their attack. And you mentioned it. I think Bayern did not have a shot in the first 25 minutes, which is an absurd statement to say.
It's the first time this year that's happened, that they have not had a shot in the first 25 minutes. And yeah, first 30 was all Union Berlin. And I was really surprised, to be honest with you. I have watched only one Berlin match that I can recall this year, and that was a snooze fest at home, 0-0 to, I believe, Gladbach. Either Gladbach or Freiburg, but I believe it was Gladbach. And, I had obviously watched Union Berlin in the past and known them in the past, but also even this year as a very stout defensive team, a team that's going to kind of park the bus against Bayern and, look to defend and maybe scrape away with a low scoring draw. I never in my wildest dreams expected Union Berlin to come out firing and pressing and like locking down guys. Like as soon as a guy like Kane would sniff the ball, he'd be bombarded by 2 or 3 Union Berlin defenders within seconds. And they just brought the energy in this one. And I guarantee you Bayern was taken aback because I certainly was. And yeah, Union Berlin was actually the team who had all of the chances in that first 30 minutes because of how aggressive they came out with that press.
Yeah, and the press was giving them chances. I mean, on the counter, they had some chances in that first 10 minutes. They had the one chance, I think in the 6th or 7th minute where really the Union Berlin player should score if he slides with his left leg in there. Beautiful ball worked across Manuel Neuer that he couldn't get to. And then, eventually leads to a couple corners where again, they were making good chances, and we did see a goal come for Union Berlin, at least if it weren't for a small part of a foot.
Yeah, I mean, this goal, we're talking 11th minute here off of a corner. We're talking KD size 14, game 6, shoes on the line, 3-point. actually 2-point on the Brooklyn Nets against the Milwaukee Bucks. Game winner, but not really type shot
Good
here. I
shout.
mean, that's how small the margin was on this offside. It was literally a heel. And, by the rules, he's offside. But I do want to say I hate that rule just personally. Like, I get that that's the rule, but I hate changing something that was ruled a goal on the field by looking at it, and that's how close it was. Because, I mean, let's be honest, that doesn't affect the play at all. It was probably a deserved goal.
Common sense rules, common sense law. No, I mean, it's tough when you see the photos, the images, even the video of how close it was. It's maybe the closest I have ever seen. I don't know how you change that. I've seen people throw out suggestions of, oh, if certain body parts or, your upper body compared to your lower body, if it's moving forward, that makes it subjective. And I don't know how you'd actually change that. So there's really no perfect way to do it, unfortunately. And it sucked for Berlin. They deserved a goal at that point in the match. And it was just unfortunate, but again, that's soccer. That's the sport, and they did it end up getting one anyway. So maybe it was kind of a ball don't lie situation.
Yeah, maybe it was, but yeah, the problem is it's always going to be subjective on those calls. Again, this is totally just personal. Like, I'm not saying I'm right. Somebody who doesn't believe this is wrong, but I like the mindset of call on the field stands, and this is all sports really for me. Call on the field stands unless it's so obviously blatantly wrong and affecting the play, like when you look at it after the fact. I just feel like it sucks the life out of the stadium. It sucks the life out of sports. Like when you can't celebrate till you like look and nitpick all these little tiny things that can happen on every little play. Like, to me, it takes a little bit of the spirit out of sports. Like, I want to be able to celebrate and just go crazy in the moment, as opposed to just hold my breath and wait, and then it's 5 to 10 minutes after the actual excitement of the play, and then I'm supposed to celebrate. Like, to me, I don't like that personally.
Yeah, that's always been my biggest gripe with VAR offside in general is it takes away the celebrating. Now, there's really no way to not have that unless you have no reversing at all,
Yeah.
because that's the way it used to be, and I'm sure it would have been electric. But you probably also would miss some pretty obvious offsides if a ref just isn't having his day.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess the good thing is it lets you like play and then look at it after the fact, as opposed to like having to make the call in the moment, which is sometimes tougher, and sometimes you stop plays that should go on. So yeah, there's ways to look at it both ways. But yeah, Union Berlin was just the more energized team at this point. Again, like you said, getting that goal finally in the 27th minute off of a corner, deserved goal for how Berlin and Bayern had been playing this match. Not I guess I don't want to say not a deserved goal, but like the reason why they scored this was because Neuer just dropped the ball into the goal. Really a shot right to Neuer that he saves not even 99 times out of 100. He saves this 999,999 times out of a million.
That is insane to say, but probably true with how good Manuel Neuer is. And again, deserved goal for Union Berlin at this point, as you mentioned. Really a busted corner because it was a terribly taken strike from the
Yeah.
guy. I mean, super low and into a weird part of the box, but ends up working out for him. I think when the ball is in the box there and there's so many guys around, it's tough to see. And I'm guessing that's kind of what caught Neuer off guard.
Yeah, I think it was an instance of his vision might have been a little bit obstructed just because of all the bodies in the box on that corner. But yeah, very, very un-Neuer like, coming off of a career performance for any goalie in the world, maybe outside of Neuer because he has so many of these, against PSG. So it was really shocking to see how he played overall today, and not even just on this goal. There was multiple instances of him kind of spilling balls that he wouldn't normally spill, just being out of position. So very, very strange there from Neuer. But after that, the match kind of does open up a little bit more. Like Bayern starts to make a little bit more progress in at least keeping the ball and pushing the ball into Union Berlin's half of the pitch. And again, at this point, I just noticed a lot of grunt work from Serge Gnabry and Harry Kane in the middle of the pitch. So I wanted to shout out both of them in making, and probably Kimmich too, in making things happen, because, usually Bayern is kind of funneling attacks more up the right and the left. Leimer is so involved in the attack. Stanisic is oftentimes involved in the attack. Hell, the center backs, Upa and Ta, are involved in the attack most of the time. Goretzka. And those guys were almost ghosts today in a lot of instances, I thought, where I just didn't notice them progressing the ball like they usually do. Olise had so many poor passes, which is very uncharacteristic from Olise. But again, like, I thought Kane and Serge were really working their butts off. Serge was pressing in a way that was almost like covering for or Diaz, I'm sorry, at times, where Diaz usually is pressing hard, but seemed like maybe he was tired. Maybe this was Kompany's instruction for certain matchups. I don't know, but Gnabry was really covering the left hand of the pitch press, as well as the middle of the field. And usually, like, Diaz would at least be like in his shadow to like stop an outlet pass, but I was noticing today that he just like wasn't there, and Gnabry was kind of having to do the work of like two guys. So it was just strange, but all that's to say, Bayern started to make a little bit of progress after that Berlin goal.
Yeah, they definitely did start to make progress. I noted a couple things that it looked like they were playing better. I think the only time that Elise and Leimer were connecting was actually right before the Diaz goal. I did notice that I wrote down they were starting to cook just a little bit. But I will add to your talk about the press is oftentimes when I watch Bayern, you rarely see that teams are able to get into the midfield with passes from center backs. And I noticed in the first half, multiple times, they actually found one of their deeper lying midfielders with a pass, and then he was able to turn and had 20 yards of space. I don't think I have ever or rarely seen that while watching Bayern. So whether that was the press that you're talking about with Diaz and Serge not being in sync, but it didn't necessarily lead to anything for Berlin directly, but I just found that interesting.
Yeah, and that was part of the problem that I had with Goretzka in this match too, is like he should be more involved in those spaces. Again, I don't know if it was Kompany's game plan that just wasn't quite right because of how aggressive Berlin was as opposed to how they usually play, or if it was just Goretzka not being aggressive enough himself. And I'm not a Goretzka hater like it seems 90% of Bayern fans are. I mean, I'm not his biggest fan, but I don't think he's as bad as most people say. But this was a match where you needed Pavlovic in that midfield, owning that space, owning passes. And again, like, I think Kompany waited way too long to bring in Pavlovic for Goretzka in this one. But we do finally see some link-up play on the left-hand side of the pitch that leads to this world-class Diaz goal. I think it's Bayern's goal of the year from what I'm trying to rack my brain through, just because of everything that led up to it. Stanisic and Diaz linking up like Leimer and Olise usually do, and Stanisic finding Diaz with kind of an overlapping run. Diaz dribbles past the defender, but almost runs out of bounds with the ball, slides to keep it in, and also make a move on another defender with this slide, and then buries a shot at an angle that I've watched 10 to 20 times at this point, and it still looks impossible. I still don't understand how he made this shot at this angle the way he did top bins. It was unreal.
Yeah, watching the replay was kind of funny because great play from Diaz to originally hold the ball, and then he passes it to Josip Stanisic, who plays the ball through, and you can tell that it's an overweighted pass, and Stanisic literally goes like this. He's pissed at himself that he plays the pass, with too much weight. And then, of course, you see Diaz, a beautiful slide. I mean, the way he slid was just so pristine, gets his foot around the ball, kind of curls it back in. And then while he's half on the ground, has the wherewithal to kind of point it back in the direction of goal. I mean, who actually has the guts to do that and the skill? It's not something that you'd ever probably practice. I mean, maybe guys practice sliding and saving a ball and then like hitting it while you're on the ground, but you rarely see a play like that. And as you mentioned, the goal speaks for itself.
Yeah, absolutely absurd, like bonkers play from Luis Diaz there. So all the credit in the world to Diaz for that goal. And like I said, shortly after this goal, I don't know if it was right before or right after halftime. I honestly can't even remember. But Kane, for the second time in this match, at this point, he might have even done it once or twice more in the second half, but he makes one of those textbook Kane passes that's from deep in the pitch across the entire like half of the pitch, bending into Luis Diaz's foot in stride to give him so much space and a one-on-one with the keeper. And Diaz like falls before he shoots it and then like tries to shoot it as he's falling, and it's just so far off that it was like hilarious that these two like juxtaposed like moments in the match for Luis Diaz happened so close to each other, just because this is what we've seen from him this year. Is like he makes these unreal shots and goals and he has amazing output, but still misses these just gimmies, like shots that pretty much I mean, they're not as easy as they look, but most players, most professional soccer players would make these shots. I mean, I believe there was a stat that he's missed 5 out of 7 of his big chances, and he still has unbelievable numbers. It's just hilarious and funny, and just like you said, like that's just football. It's funny, but also sad and also awesome.
Yeah, that is just football. That's exactly what happens. I mean, I feel like you see that all the time where they score the tough one, miss the easy one. That was Kane's second brilliant ball on the day. I mean, that one was absurd. He also had a ball to Elise across the entirety of the pitch earlier in the match that was absurd. So even on a day where Kane isn't scoring in the first part of this match, in the first 90 minutes of the match, he's finding ways to impact the game in other ways, which not many players can say.
Yeah, and it's again just like you don't notice these things necessarily unless you're watching Kane week in and week out, because they're not always assists, they're not always even involved in plays that lead to a goal. But when you do watch Kane for 90 minutes and you just pay attention to what he's doing, it is unreal. And that's really all I need to say about that. A few minutes later, I think this was the second half now, Kane did score an offside goal, which was correctly ruled off. He was just a little bit more off than Union Berlin was on their goal earlier in the match.
Yeah, and I don't know. It was interesting because, you go into half, you do draw a level, and I really thought Bayern was going to come out in the second half and be such a better team.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen really at any point in the second half. I mean, you got Berlin backing off more, packing it in. You do get that offside goal, but I was kind of shocked. And I think it was just coming down to the fact that Bayern were tired, and no matter what was going to happen, that can't change unless you bring on a bunch of subs, which Kompany didn't really do.
Yeah. At this point in the match, at halftime, I don't know how you can go a half and not see how tired these guys really were. Like, again, I mentioned it before, but a lot of just like sloppy passes. Like, obviously they weren't pressing like they normally do, but there was the mental tired mistakes too. Like physically it seems really obvious when somebody's tired, but mentally you can also pick up on these mistakes that guys are making mentally because they're so tired, I think, at least. And yeah, to me, again, it was a shame that Carl didn't come on earlier. It was a shame that Pavlovich Bischoff didn't come on earlier. But we wait until the 59th minute to see that first sub, and it was Leonard Carl for Serge Gnabry, who, again, I thought Gnabry had a very nice match in terms of what he was doing off ball, what he was doing in terms of pressing, the amount of ground he had to cover. I thought he was having a pretty good match. But it was so obvious that he was tired and he needed to be subbed off. And I would say the same about Diaz. I'd say the same about Olise. Goretzka, Stanisic, Limer. I thought they all looked really tired. The center backs too. And yeah, instantly, I think you see Carl just bring a different level of energy. You see him bring a little bit more edge to the attack that was just lacking all game long.
Yeah, and that's what Carl does. I mean, he's just a bundle of energy and a joy to watch. I was expecting him to do a little bit more, try to get into some tighter spaces, a la Musiala. That's maybe a lot to expect. So understandably, he wasn't able to impact the game in that way. But, I still thought he was a bright spot, good sub to make. I think it was the obvious sub to make. And it's just tough in a second half where Berlin are going to pack the box more in and be more defensive. The game was a little bit more open in the first half, probably. So I think it makes sense that there wasn't a lot of chances. And it's not like Berlin were getting loads of chances either. So I think Bayern were mostly solid defensively in that second half.
Yeah, as the game progressed, we saw Berlin start to pack it in a little bit more and more, time waste a little bit more and more, which is all expected, and that's their right to do with how they played in that first half. So we did see the pace of the match slow down a little bit more. Bayern start to get a little bit more antsy, a little bit, create a few more chances just because of how the progression of the game went. Olise had a really good chance that, it was a nice save. It was a near post shot, nice save. He should have went far post. I think he would have scored it if he would have went far post because the keeper was able to extend completely and reach that near post. But far post, if he would have just curled it in, the keeper wouldn't have had a shot. Can't dog him that much because it's, this is all hindsight. But I just think in Olise that's a little bit sharper, a little bit fresher, just bags that shot.
Yeah, to be fair, a lot of keepers don't save that just because, and they even mentioned this on the broadcast, but most guys are going far post there. So kind of cheeky to try for near post. But he didn't generate a lot of power. He was mostly using the direction of the ball, the pass to him, and then kind of using that momentum to shoot it. And it just ended up being kind of a slower shot, unfortunately.
Yeah, and finally the 80th minute is when we see the subs that, again, arguably should have been made a lot earlier. Bischoff comes on for Limer, Pavlovic comes on for Goretzka, and I guess they're not responsible for the goal, but it is funny because shortly after those subs come on, Berlin does score on a corner kick in the 83rd minute, and I don't want to say the wheels fall off for Bayern, and it's not like complete panic, but like, yeah, it was just a moment of another lapse of mental, physical, whatever you want to call it, because Kane just tries to clear a ball off this corner and just really kicks it right to Union Berlin, and they're able to just score a relatively easy goal, or at least a goal that's a lot easier than it should have been given the circumstances.
Yeah, and I mentioned this to you during when it happened, but is Kane trying to head it the way he did? Was it just a miss hit on part of his head? Usually when you clear from a set piece like that, you just head it way higher up and try to get it further out. This one, he heads it really just straight down at the Berlin player, and it's a gift, to be honest. It's a complete gift, and the guy scores it. You're never expecting the ball to come to you like that. So unfortunate for Harry. It's the first mistake he's made all year, probably. So am I going to be upset with him? Of course not.
Yeah, it's just tough. And, he obviously did a lot for the team in this game. So to see that breakdown sucks.
And he makes up for the mistake, might I add.
Yeah, he makes up for the mistake, and maybe it was just seeing his old Premier League friend Nico Jackson come on in the 88th minute for Stanisic. No, obviously Jackson not in long enough to make impact on the match, good or bad. But Kane does actually score a goal in the 93rd minute, mostly courtesy of Tom Bischoff. Kane made a great run into the box, surprised Union Berlin. but Bischoff just laid a beautifully curling cross into the box, Reece James-esque, onto the head of Harry Kane, who scores a nice header to level the match there. And I mostly think it was just a great ball by Bischoff. Union Berlin, you can never, ever let Harry Kane out of your sight in the box because it's going to end up in a goal. That's just how good he is. But mostly credit to Bischoff and Kane there.
Yeah, that ball by Bischoff is unbelievable. It's one of the better balls you'll see all weekend. I'm not even exaggerating. The curl on that ball, the pace of it, perfectly to Harry Kane. And that's not even a good angle, like to put a ball in there. So credit to Bischoff for that. You could argue if Jackson doesn't make a slight run in the left in front of Bischoff there, probably drawing a defender away, that maybe Bischoff doesn't get the ball off. So Jackson arguably did have an impact.
He did. Yeah. Nothing is the same if he doesn't come in, for sure.
You could argue that.
I mean, you could. But yeah, that's how things end up for Bayern. Again, I said it out front. I think a draw was a deserved result. You can't be mad if you're a Bayern fan in terms of the Bundesliga, because we saw classically Dortmund flubs it whenever they're given a chance. 1-1 draw in the 98th minute, I believe. Hoffenheim, I think they were playing, had that last second goal. They were playing Hamburg, and Leipzig lost to Hoffenheim 3-1, which is embarrassing for any team that's trying to chase Bayern in the Bundesliga. So from that standpoint, it is what it is. From a grander standpoint, you got to get these guys some rest, because any Bundesliga match that you're not fully focused can lead to lost points. It can.
Yeah, Bayern are up 6 points right now in the league, 10 matches in. Obviously quite a long season, so we have quite a ways to go at this point. Anything can happen. I think Bayern are in a great spot at this point. Clearly, they are unbeaten, invincible still at this point, even though they drew here. But yeah, I mean, their goal differential is plus 29. That's actually fake. I just can't believe that could possibly be true.
It is comical. So yeah, I'm never here to tell anybody how to be a fan. But my advice, if you want it, is don't overreact. It only becomes a problem if we're late into the season and Kompany's not rotating and guys are burned out and injured and whatnot. That's when it becomes a problem. It's not a problem right now.
Yeah, I mean, the good news for Kompany is coming up here. They have a break where I think these breaks nobody plays. Correct? That's the point of a break.
Yeah, they call it international break, but I think they got to change the name, because I'm looking at the starting lineup for Bayern here, and everybody's going to be playing multiple matches, probably 90 minutes, except for Neuer, who is rumored to come back to the German national team, but I'm begging him, don't do it, because up until this game, your body looked great.
I'm begging him to come back, because that's A, better for the pod, B, better for Germany, and C, just awesome for the World Cup. Just as a fan of the sport, you want to see the top players there.
Yeah, it's true. But I do actually believe that his international rest is not fully responsible for his form now, but I do think it actually is helping him kind of get to this level that he's at right now, which, again, before today was unbelievable.
Yeah, that's probably true. It's probably true.
Yeah, and honestly, for this one, I don't know if I can give match awards, which is sad. I'll give a participation trophy. Now that Woke is back, I'll give a participation trophy to Harry Kane and Serge Gnabry and Joshua Kimmich, and I'll give a holy shit, your goal was awesome to Luis Diaz trophy.
Quite possibly the best goal I've seen all year in the sport by Luis Diaz. Yeah,
so those are my shouts there. Nobody else deserves a peep from me on this one. But I will say, let's just go into this break and not get injured.
Yeah, that's a positive way to end.
All right, Mia San Mia always, and like and subscribe and comment, and we'll switch over now to the Chelsea reaction, which might or might not involve me depending on my activities of the day on the road.
We'll see if we get a happy or sad Jim in the coming seconds here.
It's going to be awesome. Wait.
And as it turns out, I'm super happy. Chelsea 3, Wolves 0. Let's freaking go. Great second half from Chelsea. After maybe the most boring first half I had ever seen watching Chelsea Football Club. I mean, that first half was brutal. For all those that watched it, you know exactly what I'm talking about because essentially no action, maybe one pretty solid chance for Chelsea. Wolves did nothing. Wolves essentially had one good chance in the entire match, and that didn't come until the second half. But man, it's good to get 3 points. Chelsea sits second in the table as of recording this right now. And we'll see what happens in the Man City-Liverpool match tomorrow. But I'm feeling great about Chelsea right now. You know, there's been so many ups and downs, but I told Danny and myself earlier this week that I got to stop overreacting about Chelsea because when you take a step back and look right now, they are second in the table. And I hate the way they play at times. I hate the way they look because they can be so maddening and so frustrating. But we are sitting second in the table because this Premier League season has been so jumbled and crazy. You know, Arsenal dropped points today to Sunderland, and they're 6 points ahead of us now. And that's not a crazy leap to make if you're Chelsea. I'm not saying I think they're going to be in a title race for the rest of this year, but the table sure is telling me that right now. You know, even if Man City or Liverpool get a win tomorrow and go ahead of us, we'll still be third, which, you know, is not something to scoff at, I think, even with how crazy this Premier League season has been. But let's talk about this match. I'm not going to spend an overly crazy amount of time just talking here by myself, but very happy that Chelsea got the 3 points. I think a few players played super well, especially in that second half. So let's just go through the lineup because, you know, again, we had Robert Sanchez playing keeper. Didn't really do much today. You know, was fine with the ball at his feet. Nothing to save, to be completely honest. I don't think he made a save, but did have a couple nice claims and times where he came out. Early on, actually, Wolves did have one cross that came in across the face of the goal, and Sanchez did have to stop that, dove out, actually, did one of his classic Superman dives, and was completely awesome in stopping that. And then you had Mark Cucurella, Trevoh Chalobah, West Fofana, who's been awesome to see healthy and playing for this Chelsea team, and Malo Gusto at right back. I think Reece James probably was getting some rest after starting against Karabag, knowing that he's going to be playing for England as well in the international break. You wonder if Maresca has that in the back of his mind. I think I certainly would if I'm Maresca, thinking that you want to rest him up. And then if he's going to play twice for England, let's say, you want him to be fresh coming off the break if you're Chelsea. Chelsea do have a couple important matches coming after the international break. Midfield, you had Enzo and Caicedo. João Pedro at the cam. And I tell you what, it was an absolute treat to watch Enzo Fernandez playing in a deeper midfield role. When he's on the left side in that midfield partnership next to Caicedo, the guy is unbelievable. That's the Enzo that I've always loved. The box crashing Enzo, he's a good player. We've seen him get quite a few goals, quite a few important goals over the last couple of years for Chelsea, but the ball spraying, deep pass finding, playmaking, creative Enzo Fernandez, he could be a difference maker for this team. I tell you what, I can only imagine when Cole Palmer gets back and is playing either on the right wing or in the cam, him paired with Enzo Fernandez, Caicedo holding things down in the midfield. It's just different. It's a different Enzo, an Enzo that I love to see. He was maybe the best player on the pitch today. Didn't end up with a goal or an assist, but he essentially created almost everything. And in the first half was the only creator for Chelsea when nothing was going right. But more on him later. In the attack, I mentioned João Pedro, but then you had Garnacho left wing, Pedro Neto right wing, and Delap up top. It's unfortunate because Delap finally gets a start. He's back healthy. He's just not doing it for me. In the first half, we didn't see really much at all, if anything, for Liam Delap. Maybe a half chance here and there, had a couple shots, but he just hasn't been active. And I think in a game where you're going against a back five, low block, maybe it's not his game unless he's rising up to finish across from Neto, from Garnacho. He's that type of direct guy that we saw last year with Ipswich Town. You know, when he went against Chelsea, he was able to find the space, make some runs, be direct with his play on the counter. I think that's the type of thing he prefers. He's just not going to get that at Chelsea, let's be honest. Chelsea are a team that possess the ball first and foremost. So on the counter, you're not going to get many opportunities unless you're just pressing hard and getting the ball back, intercepting it. So tough day for Delap, but you know, the wings did come to play. The first half, I thought Garnacho was the second most creative player behind Enzo. He did have the biggest chance off an Enzo pass, and he probably should have put it away, to be fair, but ends up not putting it away. But I think he looked pretty good, threatening off that left side. You know, when he would get the ball, I liked what he was seeing. I liked what he was doing. Tried to get some crosses in, did have one cross with the left foot that I can recall that was threatening, and it just didn't result in a goal. But overall, liked what I saw from Garnacho. And we'll talk about the second half in a minute here, but Garnacho really, really stepped up, and I think he's building on what has been some great performances for Chelsea Football Club. But Pedro Neto, to be honest, in the first half, I thought Pedro Neto was shit. I just don't love what he provides in the setup of this current Chelsea squad. Yeah, he crosses the ball in fine. Defense, cover for the right backs, and for Caicedo when he's kind of on that right side as well. But he really provides nothing in the attack in terms of goal scoring. And obviously he gets a goal in the second half. We'll talk about that. But he's a big part of the reason why Chelsea just have a lack of attack often in the first half of these matches. It seems like they don't have a lot of attackers on the pitch because he's a guy that almost does nothing against him. I love the guy, and I think he can be great in certain matches. I just want to see Estevo starting matches, getting 90 minutes. We saw against Karabakh. We saw when he came in today. The guy is so electric. So the first half ends 0-0, and you're frustrated, to be honest. You're absolutely frustrated. Nothing was really happening. You're like, all right, is this a classic Chelsea Maresca game again where we just can't break down a low block? We just can't quite get there. That's where it was going. And I knew Chelsea were the better team. They were possessing. They did have some half chances. Wolves had no chances in that first half. But they start to push a little more in the second half. Garnacho. And again, Enzo was providing a lot of passes, spraying out to each side, but Garnacho ends up firing a beautiful cross in. And at this point, Maresca said, let's just put a bunch of guys in the box. I think they had 5 guys at one point in the box. And one of them ends up being Melo freaking Gusto, who bags his first Chelsea goal, finding the Garnacho cross. We've been joking for a while now. When is Melo Gusto going to get his goal? I joked he was going to get it against Bayern. I joked here and there that he's going to score like a long shot goal. We've seen him fire off shots that have no chance of going in. But of all matches, of course, he gets it against Wolves. The last place team, the relegated Wolves, likely to get relegated, let's be honest, only 11 matches in, but Wolves are just not a good team. They're absolutely brutal. And, of course, Gusto gets his goal, of course. The cross, by the way, by Garnacho, unreal cross. It was pristine, about as good as Bischoff's from earlier today, to be honest. Bischoff's was a little longer out and tougher to deliver, but I thought Garnacho's cross there was absolutely brilliant. But just happy for Gusto that he finally gets his first goal because he deserves it, to be honest. He's sparingly played in a lot of these matches and looked decent at times. And so I was happy that that he was able to get a goal. But let's talk a little bit now about João Pedro, because first half, I didn't see anything out of him. He's been so up and down kind of with the flow of this Chelsea team. I think it's going to help him tremendously once Cole Palmer gets back. And I thought him playing with the Lop would be better for his game. I don't know. I think we just have to see what he likes, see the flow. But he had some chances. He had a chance there in the second half. Or was it the first? I forget. But he should have scored one, I remember. I think it was in the first half where he just kind of duffs it. And then really the difference in this match was Pedro's brother from Brazil, Estevão. Comes on in the 64th minute. The crowd is loving it. When he was warming up a few minutes prior, the crowd is active. First touch of the match, 67 seconds after coming on. The crowd gets on their feet. You can literally hear. It's like Eden Hazard. The crowd just literally starts roaring. He takes it past his defender, crosses it in, technically gets deflected. I don't know if that counts as assist, but finds his way to João Pedro, who fires it in. And Pedro had done nothing on the day, as I said. But his Brazilian brother comes in, delivers the ball, and it's pandemonium. It really is, because Estevão is such a threat every single time he touches the ball. And instantly when he's coming in, he's having 1-2s with everybody around him. He's looking threatening. He's getting the ball across the middle of the field. He had a nice ball later where he goes across the middle of the field to Pedro, who probably should have struck it one time, didn't. But the guy just is everywhere. He's tracking back defensively, intercepting the ball, making tackles. He's doing things that I don't think anybody thought he'd be doing this early into his Chelsea career. You know, you never know what to expect from an 18-year-old kid coming from a foreign land, literally doesn't even speak English, is just doing the best he can. But I think the joy that he has and brings to fans, teammates, coaches, everybody around him ups the level of this team. And right now, he's Chelsea's best attacker. It's as simple as that. I think I said it at half, and I want him to come on because he's been the best and most consistent attacker for Chelsea. What he's doing right now is almost unheard of for young kids. You know, especially in the Premier League, I feel like you don't often buy young players that aren't from England and they come in right away and are successful. But that's what we've seen from Estevão, and it's been crazy. That's why I want to really emphasize that what he's doing, just take advantage of the fact that you're a Chelsea fan and watch, take note, because Estevão is unreal. He's an unreal talent. I can't wait to see this guy grow. Honestly, if he stays at Chelsea for the next 5-10 years, whatever, and imagine once Palmer gets back and the combos that they can create. If Estevão is starting on the right wing when Palmer comes back to play at that attacking midfield spot as the number 10, oh, this team will be a can't miss, a must watch. Just absolutely unreal what Estevão does. I mean, I'm at a loss for words, as you can see. I really am, because he's beautiful. He's just a beautiful talent right now. He is. But Enzo Fernandez is too. Enzo Fernandez on this day, I always think I got to get Enzo kit. He's one of my favorite players. He just is. I love Enzo Fernandez. I always have faith in what he can provide. Passing, shooting, whatever. Being a leader. I think he's an underrated leader as a vice captain. But he steps up again in the 73rd minute. And at this point, you know, after Chelsea had scored the first, before Estevão came on, they kind of backed off. And I was getting worried. I'm like, all right, this is classic Chelsea. You're going to score, but then you're just going to relax as if the game is over. But thankfully, once Estevão came on, they upped it again. And then Enzo starts a beautiful counter. I think it was off a set piece Wolves had where they had a bunch of players forward. The ball finds its way to Enzo. Just such a good ball up the pitch to Garnacho, and Alejandro takes it. And this is what I've been getting on him and Gittins to do all year long. You got to use your speed. He takes it right away, uses the speed, gets past his defender, crosses it to Neto, who's got a wide open finish. And it was beautiful to see. Garnacho getting 2 assists, arguably the best player on the pitch. I think Enzo was better, but Garnacho gets the 2 assists. I mean, Garnacho, his creativity, his speed, the way he can get balls in, the way he can threaten, be direct at defenders is awesome. It's absolutely awesome. Him and Neto sit together on the sponsorship on the sideline. It brought me joy. I'm not going to lie. Garnacho has brought me a lot of joy since he's been on this Chelsea team. We knew he had a high ceiling. You know, United was such a shit show that a lot of these players leave and then suddenly they find things that have been great for him. And Garnacho has, thankfully for Chelsea, been one of those players. He's just been a treat to watch. He really has. I hope he can keep that up after this international break. I think he's going to be super important. I think in a match against Barcelona, he could be key. In a match against Arsenal, he could be key, having the experience of going against them multiple times in the past. But he's been awesome. He's been absolutely awesome. You just love to see guys like that succeed. We did see Reece James come on, Mark Guiu, Santos, and Gittins. Reece James just brings you calm, as always. Guiu pressed hard. You know, he almost got a goal just for pressing. And I almost think Guiu right now is more exciting than Delap because you know he just goes hard and he always finds himself in good positions. Whether he scores them or not, he almost actually scored another time off Esteval. Brilliant low ball across the face. And Guiu could have been offside potentially if that goal would have gone in. But I just like him there. I like what he can do, especially if he comes on only for, 15, 20, 30 minutes even. The burst of energy he has, I don't think there's another Chelsea player who has that. And even Gittins, too, when he came on, I didn't really notice Andre Santos, to be honest, which is probably a good thing from a midfielder. But Gittins ends up playing kind of on the right with Estevao. Liked the chemistry those two were building, some 1-2 combos. So that could be something to watch going forward. I don't know if we'll see Maresca actually play Gittins on the right. Could have just been the way the game shook out. But yeah, just liked what I saw from the attack in the second half. And so good for Chelsea to get 3 goals. You want to up that goal differential. I think they could have pushed for more toward the end. I really do. I think they were trying to preserve the clean sheet. It's been 4 or 5 clean sheets this season in the Premier League, which is not something to laugh at. I think it's very solid, and I'm very happy that Chelsea have done that. So, yeah, very happy with the second half. And I do want to shout out the defenders. I think Cucurella was pretty solid. Chalobah was fine. Did kind of get out-muscled in the second half. That led to Wolves' best chance that they ended up missing. But, nothing terrible. Gusto was great, as we talked about. But West Fofana, I want to highlight because it's great to see him healthy. I've talked about, can he be the center back next to Levi Colwill when Levi gets back that can unlock this Chelsea defense? I think he could be. I've loved what I've seen from Achampong. He's young, still needs time to learn, grow into it himself, and to be the guy that Maresca probably wants him to be. But I think Fofana could be that guy. He's got speed. He's got technical ability. He can carry the ball up the pitch. Achampong does that well. I think Fofana has a little bit of that in him too. We've seen Fofana be able to score goals. That's not something that is a priority for a center back, but if you can provide that, it's also pretty key. Colwill has done that at times too, but I think these two together, Colwill being the great passer, the center back, the true guy there, Fofana next to him can be key too. So, yeah, if Fofana can remain healthy here, we'll just see if he can be on the Reece James plan. We saw Lavia couldn't be on that plan, but hoping that Fofana can be. So that could be huge for Chelsea going forward. My bad man on the day is Enzo Fernandez. I've talked about him so much, but he's showing that he can go back to this kind of number 8 playmaking, creative guy in the midfield. He's so good at it. He's so good. I want Maresca to give him the chance to do that more often because when he does it well, he can be special. He really can be special. Batman, Enzo, as I said. Robin's Garnacho, the 2 Argentinian boys. They really are linking up well, playing well. Garnacho was so fun. Nacho Cheese, my guy. Underrated, I'm going to go with Caicedo just because the guy's a beast. I think he had some tackles, interceptions, key moments in this match that will go unnoticed. And as usual, Caicedo, probably the best player on the pitch just in terms of aura and the things he does provide. Defender, I'm going with Fofana because when healthy, again, this guy is a great, great, great center back. But shout out to Gusto. Moment of the match has to be the Gusto goal, right? I mean, it's probably Estevao coming on after that, but Gusto's first senior goal for Chelsea. That's awesome. All the flowers to Gusto. First senior goal. So cool. So cool. And I'm going to bring back Bad Day at the Office. It's a beautiful day, but Liam Delap, I need you to do more. I'm going to challenge you to do more because I know that you can be the striker Chelsea wants you to be. I know that you can be an awesome goal scorer for this team. So let's see it happen. Let's see it happen. Overall, just a great way to finish off this day. You know, Bayern did get a draw. Was bound to happen, but Chelsea lift up the Always Bayern Chelsea pod with a win to end the day. Was the NA Guinness the difference? If you saw my short at halftime, it might have been. It might have been the difference on the day. Up the Chelsea. Have a great rest of your weekend. Mia San Mia as well.